Fringe North Podcast Series. So each episode will have some exciting guests from our amazing community of performers and creators who will give us an inside look into both their lives as artists and what they're bringing to the festival this season. Hello, bonjour, Annie. Hola.
So this week, I'm so excited to be hosted by MD Dunn, also known as Mark Dunn. Mark, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Emelie. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so the way I've been kind of starting this the series is just getting to know you as an artist in your own words. Like I know you on paper, you're a musician and a published writer, but how do you describe yourself?
I'm just a person. Well, yeah, I see myself, I think, as a writer, and a writer of songs and poem type things and stories and some journalism. So I write all kinds of different things. I'm a fairly dedicated guitar player, and I've been doing that for 40 some years. And I play just about every day, and it occupies a great deal of my mental space. So yeah, that's kind of how I see myself. I try to avoid labels like musician and poet, those sorts of things, and look more at in this case, what I do, and just look at the action more than a label. But those are some of the things I do.
Nice, interesting. So I want to go back into the creativity at some point, and I like your action versus label. Personally, it's like the verb of making is the biggest part of being an artist. But
I think so.
First,
yeah.
I kind of want to get an idea of is this your first year participating in Fringe North?
No, in fact, I think could have been the first Fringe festival. I think it was at Roberta Bondar that I played. I can't quite recall, but it was some time ago.
Yeah, I'm new to the Fringe circle, so yeah, I'm just getting introduced to all these artists as well as Algoma artists. So are you from Sault Ste. Marie originally?
I am. Yes,
Nice.
I was born in Sault Ste. Marie, and I've lived there for most of my life. Maybe about 10 years in total that I've not been there.
Yeah. And where were you during that time?
Well, I lived in British Columbia for a good chunk of the 90s in my 20s. And then I went to grad school in Waterloo for about a year and a bit. So those are really my absences, and other than some travel, I've been living in Sault Ste. Marie.
Amazing. Yeah, it's a beautiful spot. I grew up driving through the Soo and stopping in the Soo quite often, just because I grew up in north of Thunder Bay. So taking Highway 17 and that scenic drive along Superior has always been, a big part of growing up, road trips.
Yeah.
So you mentioned grad school. Did you do grad school in writing, or like what's your background for education?
English literature.
Nice.
I kind of came late to that stuff. I finished my it took me, I like to say, about 15 years to do a 3-year degree. So I kind of kept coming back to it, and I was in I can't remember now the ages of things, but probably late 30s by the time I finished my master's in that and started teaching. So I'm a kind of a late bloomer in that regard.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, I'm not sure I'm early to the game in terms of I'm still young, I think, but it seems like we're always kind of evolving no matter the path, right? And have you found, I think it's kind of neat to me that education has been spanned out, especially in terms of like in my mind, the creative process, just because I went to school right out of I did art school right out of high school, and I wasn't really an artist at that point. Like I didn't even know what it could be. And it's been a struggle. It's been about 5 years since I've been out of school, and it's been a bit of a struggle trying to like find my ground, to understand what my creativity is.
Sure.
Was that taking the time? Like, did you notice any sort of maturity in your writing or in your creative process? Because I think the biggest part of creativity is like autonomy, the ability to do it on your own and in solitaire, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, can you comment on that?
Yeah, I can appreciate what you're saying. I don't know that I'm only speaking from my experience, of course, but I don't know that the ground ever becomes solid. I think it's always the search for it. And I think that's probably part of what compels us, you know, that just to keep looking. And I think if we found that solid ground, we'd just kind of stand there for a while and
Yeah.
nothing else would happen. But I guess there are plateaus. I started I was quite young when I started writing. I started playing guitar when I was 13 because I'd been making up songs, as a lot of kids do.
Yeah.
And but I didn't have any musical training, so I didn't know how to keep track of them all. So I figured, well, I should learn how to play an instrument so that I can remember these songs. That's why I started playing guitar, and I didn't study it. I've been self-taught all the way through, and so that, you know, that's had benefits, and it's also been detrimental in some ways. But the formal education, though, took me a while to get my head around. I did go to university when I was 19, and it just wasn't working at that point for me. So I left and then came back to it in my 30s. So that, and I did study literature. So I guess it was creative. I almost compartmentalize it in a way. Like I saw it more as sort of, well, it was like a scholarly pursuit, and yeah, I don't know. I guess it education is a creative pursuit, but I just sort of see them, or saw them back then more so, as separate things. Like I had my creative life, and then I was going to school to try to I wanted to teach. Yeah.
Right.
So
So
yeah.
you had that path set out, and it's like it's a lot of technical stuff. It's like, okay, you're forced to take these courses and to complete this
Yeah.
curriculum
Yeah.
to get the paper at the end of the
Kind of, yeah.
road, I guess. Yeah.
The one
Yeah.
thing I will say, though, is that with writing, um, I think it goes with any art. If it's almost more important to be engaged with the art form through reading, or through, you know, appreciating other people's art. I think that helps us develop in sort of a much more direct way than actual practice. I think the practice helps too, but one can write all day and often not get, you know, quote unquote better.
Yeah.
But through reading some inspirational work, you can often improve that way too. So
Yeah.
that was the experience of going to grad school later on, and going to university later on, is that I did appreciate it more, because I'd reached a point in life where I didn't think I'd ever have the opportunity to go back and do that again. So it was a world that I appreciated once I got there, once I was ready
Nice.
for it, I think.
Yeah. Right on. That's exciting. I'm actually heading to grad school to do my MFA this fall.
Awesome.
So we'll see. Yeah, it's been a few years, but since school, so there's always that adjustment of like
Yeah.
schedules and stuff. But I think I'm ready. I'm slightly hesitant because it is my creative pursuit. Like that's painting, and it's
Yeah.
I don't know. When it's in a specific setting where you're forced to defend it within like expectations and within the school of like academia, pressure there. And I'm not saying like the pressure to perform necessarily, but the pressure to make quote unquote good work. Anyways, it does a little number on the creative process. I think you really have to find the grounding parts of who you are and what you're trying to say.
Yeah. Oh,
Interested.
I've sort of lost
Sorry.
your audio for a while.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Is it all good now?
Yeah, you're back. Yeah.
Okay. If that happens again, just let me know.
Okay.
Yeah, I think like I was interested to hear this like a little bit of a difference between the writing and the music writing. So for music, as you're a musician and you're primarily self-taught, you mentioned, or fully self-taught. Yeah.
Well, I am, but I also at the same time I think, well, no one's truly self-taught, because obviously I learn things from somewhere, either from listening to, and from playing with people too, right? So you learn that way. What I mean is I never took formal lessons or studied theory. So everything I know I kind of stumbled upon.
Yeah. I think that's considered self-taught, but yeah, I understand what you're saying in terms of, we all have teachers. It's just different forms.
You're
so
correct.
So your music, how does that differ? How does your creative process, like your writing process with music, differ from your writing? Are you lyrically based, or is it more like music based? Like, is the instrument your driving kind of vessel, or is it inspired by the lyrics and the poetry?
Yeah, it's almost always different, but it's changed over the years as well. It used to be, when I was younger, all I did was write songs. That's all I wanted to do. And so they would come through the guitar. And so I'd play guitar all the time, and then just sort of make up nonsense sounds until something sounded like words, and I'd piece songs together that way. And I still kind of do it that way. But after, it's been 40 some years now, it kind of goes in many ways now. So often I'll have lyrics or part of the lyrics first, and then I'll add music later, but it works together. So the lyrics will develop with the music, and so it's sort of an exchange like that. With songs, I'm not as conscious about it as, say, like if I'm writing a story or an article, certainly. With songs, I feel like this sounds a little hokey maybe, but I feel like they exist already. And I'm just trying to find them or allow them to find me in some way. That's kind of how I've always felt about them. And, I don't know how much of that's delusion or that's true, but so with songs, I don't feel I have much control over them, other than some little things I can adjust as I'm putting them together. And there's also my own limitations. I can only make them become what I'm able to make them become, right? So. Well, I've lost your audio again. Sorry.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate what you're saying with regards to how the song kind of becomes itself. I think of that way. Like, I think of a lot of creative pursuits in a way that I think requires like intuition, or maybe a bit of that like subconscious energy or inspiration or muse or spirit or whatever you want to refer it to. Like, there's something other than you that exists, kind of. And a friend of mine's, painter friend of mine, Don Russell, he mentioned that the artist is a vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate that comment. And sometimes, at least for me, I think like that's the biggest battle, is like just allowing yourself to open up, to be inspired and to produce something, and like your battle with your ego or whatever expectations kind of deal. When you're talking about writing and kind of just absorbing lots of literature in order to be a better writer, like sometimes it's so easy that it's hard, kind of thing. Like, I don't know, I'm not a writer, so I'm not a great writer, because I think too much about the words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like literature. I just couldn't get it out. Anyways, I don't want to talk too much about myself. I just really appreciate the creative pursuit and the creative comments. It's just so interesting how everyone kind of navigates it.
Yeah, it is. That's the beautiful thing about it, isn't it? I mean, everyone has a different discipline that they've focus on or that finds them, and then multiple ways of navigating that too. I do feel I do identify with the idea of a vessel. I try not to think about it too much or give it too much weight, because I mean, that's a very old idea. That's
Yeah.
like that's how people first thought about creativity, right? It was the
Yeah.
spirit coming through. And I
Yeah.
think there's something to be said with that. So many times you might find this in painting. You work for a time and you come back and you look at something, and maybe you have the experience of uh, wondering if you did that. Like, did I do that? You know, I find that sometimes with things I've written, or music. When the funny bit about music is that I'll write songs and then uh, I'll forget about them. So after a time, I'll I'll look through a notebook and I'll see a list, like a set list of songs, and just a title, and it's like, is that one of my songs? And then I have to go back, which to me tells me even, or suggests even more strongly that yeah, it does come partially from somewhere else, and I don't feel that I necessarily own them, although I do feel like I own them, but they're mine, but like they come through me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
How do you find the work when you look back on your, I guess, discography or your past writing? Do you see it like as markers of time? Do you feel as though they capture a time in your life?
Yeah, I do. I don't listen to I think I put out 9 albums. I don't listen to them. I only listen if I'm trying to remember how something goes. And I it's difficult to listen to often. And I find this more with the poems than that. Like I've had 3 books of poetry published and I can't read them now. Like I go back and if I'm asked to read them somewhere, I just don't want to do that even. And they make me kind of cringe now, like especially some of the poetry, like um and I think that's just you grow, you change, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That your ideas evolve kind of, and that was yesterday's
I think
idea.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And often I
That's
don't feel even um with some of the songs, I can't play them now because they don't mean anything to me anymore, and so there's that part too.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Um, so I don't know if you want to talk about your recent book that you published.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you wrote about Bruce Cockburn.
I did.
Um,
Yeah.
I can hear the inspiration in your music for sure, and your guitar playing, and some of the lyrics and stuff. Yeah, it's great, and that's obviously a huge compliment. I
I
think
take
Bruce
it
is
as such.
great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. Um, yeah, so I'm kind of curious why you chose to write about Bruce, and how that process of writing the book, and yeah, how it kind of evolved.
Yeah. It happened quite innocently and without intent, which is that could actually uh, be my epitaph probably. Um, I was interested. I've been I was a freelance writer for a long time, and that's how I made part of my living. And I would review albums and books and things like that as well. And I've been teaching at Sioux College and elsewhere, but at Sioux College now for 19 years. And so I wasn't doing as much freelance writing, and but I had this feeling like I wanted to write about music. And so I had a couple of questions, and I was thinking, well, maybe not everyone, but most people love music, and music has a profound effect upon us. Um, and it can change a person, and by changing an individual, music can change the world, and it's this very powerful, mysterious thing. And I wanted to know more about that. How does this function? Was my original concept. And I started writing about that and just reading about, you know, the physiological effects of music and these sorts of things. With that question in mind, I didn't get very far with answering those questions. At the same time, I hadn't been doing much freelance writing, and I was thinking, well, if I could interview anybody, just do an article on anybody, interview any artist, who would it be? And I realized, well, Bruce Cockburn is someone that I've loved since I was 13, 14. I found the first album that I knew of his when I was 14. And, but I didn't know a lot about the guy at the time. And so I just made the request, would Mr. Cockburn do an interview? And they said, yeah, sure. And so I found a magazine. It was called Canadian Dimension, which is a kind of left-leaning political magazine. So that first interview was very political about his activism. And I guess it went well. And then the next year I got to interview him again. And then in there somewhere, I realized that, oh boy, he has like 30 albums and I don't think I've heard them all. So I went back and I started listening to the albums I hadn't heard. There were a few, especially in the 90s, where I wasn't really listening to anybody very much. And as I listened, I made notes, and I realized that I think it just sort of occurred to me, I think I'm writing a book. There's enough material there. And I approached Mr. Cockburn's manager, and I just said, I think I'm writing a book. And he basically said, well, I won't stand in your way. Good luck. That's it. And then it just kind of started happening. And so it's written without their, kind of their blessing, but it's not like officially endorsed by. However, I was able to speak with some amazing people, like 3 of his producers, tons of musicians who've worked with him. And so they were really supportive in that way. Like they could have shut it down, and they kind of let it happen. So that's kind of how it happened. Over 7 years, it kind of came together. And then a man named Daniel Keebler, who's kind of Bruce's personal photographer, archivist, offered all these wonderful photographs. So
immerse yourself into the arts at Fringe North Festival in Sault Ste. Marie. Enjoy theater, music, multi-arts adventures like no other, interactive kids activities in a beautiful historic city with nature at your fingertips and multicultural cuisine. Come join us. Plan your visit this August. Immerse yourself into the arts at Fringe North Festival in Sault Ste. Marie. Enjoy theater, music, multi-arts adventures like no other, interactive kids activities in a beautiful historic city with nature at your fingertips and multicultural cuisine. Come join us. Plan your visit this August.
And that's it. Like I say, it was maybe, I say it took about 7 years to put together. There's probably about 5 years before that of prep where I didn't know what I was doing. And then maybe about 5 years toward the end where I realized, yeah, this is a book I'm trying to do. Does that help? It's kind of confusing, I guess.
That makes sense. It totally does. It's really interesting how that came about. I think that's beautiful. And I don't know, it's good to hear that Bruce was so open and their team is so open to just allowing it to happen too. And I think that's how I kind of imagine his generosity.
Yeah, entirely. Yeah. Very generous person. Yeah.
That's great. I haven't read it yet, but it's definitely on my list. I saw that it came out this past February, right?
It came out in November. We had
Okay.
and then but we did it was sort of a soft launch, and I did sort of a lightly revised version around February, where if you have the original version in November, not much has changed, just a few mistakes that I made.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that grammatical mostly, and the wrong titles of things and that kind of thing that I fixed up. So it was kind of, well, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we did the official launch in February at the museum where Bruce Skyped in and talked with everyone. That was awesome that he would do that.
Nice. So how do you have any like learning experiences? How is the writing process for this book specifically? Like, it sounds like you had a lot of notes. Did it kind of happen chronologically, or did you piece together the book kind of like a puzzle?
Yeah, it had many different forms, and early drafts were kind of very strange. It was more sort of autobiographical. And then it kind of took on this flavor of being almost a novel about someone who's trying to write a book about Bruce Cockburn. And then yeah, there's some really weird early drafts, and I worked with an editor who really helped put it together. But the other thing that happened is, as I kept going, more people came forward, so I just had more material, and there were more interesting takes on Mr. Cockburn's music than my own, so I could replace a lot of the other stuff. I kind of forgot the question now, I guess. Sorry. Oh, and I've lost you. Sorry, I lost your audio.
Oh no. Okay. It was just
Okay.
about how the book kind of came together, and how, but you're kind of answering the question,
Okay.
It's like evolved. It sounds like it really just organically evolves. Like,
It did, really. I think so. And I quit a couple of times. I gave up on it. It's just because I didn't know what I was doing, and it just felt like, oh, who am I to write a book about Bruce Cockburn, was the other question I was asking myself, being doubtful. It's the longest book I've written. Well, I've written a couple of novels that, I hope never come out, but the longest nonfiction piece I've ever worked on. So that took a while. And it really did just sort of grow organically, like you say.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's special. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it. I don't know if I mentioned this, but yeah, Bruce Cockburn was my first ever concert in
Awesome.
Thunder Bay, at the Thunder Bay Auditorium, when I was young, with my parents and my brother. So yeah, soft spot in
Oh,
my
that's
heart.
so cool.
Yeah.
Was he playing solo at that time?
No, he had a band.
Oh,
Yeah,
wonderful.
he had his band. I think it was the Life Short Call Now
Mhm.
tour.
Oh, cool.
So it
Yeah.
was great. Yeah.
Yeah. Did he have a violin player? If you remember.
He may have. I specifically remember I was probably like 7 or 8.
Oh my,
So I was pretty
that's
young.
marvelous. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was like my first concert, and Thunder Bay Odd has great acoustics. And of course it's relatively small.
Mhm.
And yeah, I remember there was a pretty kind of badass female percussionist, and it was pretty inspiring.
Oh,
It
that's
didn't
cool.
inspire me to be a drummer, but it was just cool,
Yeah.
she was rocking, and it was amazing. Yeah.
What a marvelous first concert experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel pretty lucky. But he's still touring, so I want to catch him at some point.
He's still great. I just saw him a week and a half ago
Oh, really?
in London, and he plays differently now. He has sort of profound arthritis, and he can't do a lot of the things he used to do. But the real genius of his playing is that he's adapted and come out with like kind of a new style, but he's adapted all the old songs, and he just sounds so good. I mean, at 79, he still
Wow.
sounds great. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I don't know. I think you chose a pretty awesome, musician to write about.
I think so. Yeah.
He's
I
kind of he'll be an icon for sure. He is, if he's not already. Yeah.
I said to someone, like, that old adage, never meet your heroes, you'll be disappointed.
Mhm.
And someone was asking me that question, and I said, well, unless it's Bruce Cockburn, yeah, he's the other thing about him, like, I don't claim to know the man personally at all very well. He's just such a nice guy. Like, he's just normal. If you didn't know what he's done and who he is, he's just a regular kind of person, you know.
I think, yeah, that's amazing. That's what anyone who, I don't know, if they found success should aspire to be. Like, that's great to hear. So you're still teaching at Sault College,
I am.
and you teach, is it literature or writing?
I've kind of moved into that now. When I started, I was doing all of the writing courses one has to take but doesn't want to take. So report writing and things like that. And slowly I've moved into more general arts. So I do creative writing, English literature. I'm teaching a film course this fall, and music history is another course that I teach.
Cool.
So, and I've been doing about 19 years now. I've been there. Can't believe it.
How have you grown as an educator, and how do you feel it influences your creative pursuits?
Yeah, that's a big question. This is a cliche. Many people have said it, but teaching made me a better person. I'm convinced of that. Much more compassionate, and it's also taught me to be humble and to be and open, like to change. And when I when I started, I think I was much more strict, and I there's probably something I wanted to prove something, or I felt I had to really educate people, and they needed education. And now that I'm this far along, it's changing. I don't have the energy to be that strict about things, but I'm also finding the world has changed so much in that time that it's not so much about the topics now for me. It's more about trying to have a dialogue with people, and trying to my I wouldn't say my goal, but like, I feel like I'm a witness, really, in the best of days. Like, I'm sort of a witness to when a person discovers something that they love, right? And I'm just kind of there. Like, I don't feel like I do much other than I prepare and I have things I can guide, offer them. But they're doing all the stuff, right? And I'm just kind of there to help. And it's taken me a long time to figure that out. And I'm not saying I've mastered that either. I still struggle with all the nuances of it. It's there is a lot of it's not all fun.
Well, I can imagine.
There's a lot of stress to it as well. But ideally, that's the goal, is to stay out of the way and to just sort of guide. Yeah.
That's amazing. I think it's really cool to hear, as someone who is also interested in teaching. That's just a lot of wisdom. Thanks for sharing that. I think of my experiences having some amazing teachers, and I think it was kind of the same feeling in terms of, well, as a pupil, as a student, they kind of just say, it might just be a couple words that they just enlighten you with. This is maybe okay to continue to do this. Yes, this is a thing, like you can, like, for me, it was, I don't know, I have one teacher that was really influential, and he said, it seems like you're interested in perception. And because I was trying to explain these things and my ideas, and I said, yeah, I think so. He said, you should teach that. Like, you should, at some point. He said, I was my undergrad, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was possible, kind of like not having zero clue. And I still don't have a clue, but it's just, teachers are powerful. They can really open doors, or just kind of connect connect the wires a little bit.
I think you probably have a clue. It's maybe answers, and may you never have an answer.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of the way I feel. I think I've felt and over my life that I had answers. Like I probably truly believed that at certain points in my life, and I've come to realize that I don't have any answers at all.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's okay, so based off of that comment, when you say that you thought that you had answers, how was this for creative pursuits or just your general life? And like, how did you kind of navigate that? Like, how did your life respond to that?
I love that question because this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately.
Yeah.
I I've always compartmentalized my life in that way. So I didn't bring a lot of my creative self into teaching. I mean, it was a different sort of creative practice. And but most students wouldn't have known that I played music or anything. And that's a major part of my life that I was keeping private. Um, and so what I do find now is that that sort of vision is eroding quite a bit. And I've lost what I was about to say just because it's such a new concept to me as well. So this is really I'm still learning in this capacity. Like in my creative life, like my writing and music and that, I've always approached it as sort of a dialogue with wonder or something like that. Like I've just tried to be open and try not to understand too much about it and just let it happen. In the teaching, I think I was much more dogmatic, where I said like might have had to do with what I was teaching at the time, like report writing. So here it is. And um and as I get older, I am finding that it's the same. It's becoming the same thing. That it, yeah, that's probably as far as I can come to express it at this point, because like I say, I'm still developing as a teacher as well. So I I can't really. It's hard to reflect upon something you're in the middle of.
Yeah, yeah, that's still some insight, and it's kind of interesting to hear that you feel that it is the same, and that there is this. Yeah, I don't know, like never knowing. Maybe I've come to kind of, at least the door has opened that there is a possibility that the unknown is there, for me at least. Like
Yeah,
I've slowly, yeah, it was just over the years that since undergrad that is a possibility. So I haven't really ventured there too much, but I'm excited about it. I think I know
yeah.
that's, you know.
What a marvelous place to be. It's a
Yeah,
yeah.
it feels, when you mentioned the uneven ground,
Mhm.
like the surface, that, yeah, I feel that resonates. There's just, yeah, I don't know, I think at least for my creative process, I constantly am trying to understand what I'm doing, and trying to actually find the best way to make something, just
Mhm.
because of the nature of painting, and I'm like pretty expressive, so often my work comes really quickly. And it's just finding that energy and where I best kind of express myself. And then once I feel I have an understanding of that, like either it's like, okay, I need to, go on these walks and not look for anything in particular, but let it come to me. And once I feel like I understand even the material, like the actual material process of layering and scraping away or whatever it is,
Mhm.
as soon as I know, I can almost see the future of the painting. It actually touches it. It just completely kind of caves in on itself, like all this like built knowledge. It just doesn't it doesn't work, you know, because you think you know what it's going to look like, or what it might sound like, or what it might, you know, feel like, and you think you have the answers to making it, and it actually crushes like the spark. So it's this constant kind of learning and unlearning, like allowing that space for, at least for me, for like subconscious or like intuition, or the muse, the inspiration to kind of flow through. But my problem is I think too much about it. So that's why I constantly have to like do this back and forth. Anyways.
Well, yeah, that's all great. Yeah. There's a 19th century British poet named John Keats.
Oh yeah.
So he has this phrase, maybe you know of it, called negative capability.
I haven't heard of it.
It comes from a letter he wrote to his brother, and he was talking about he was thinking of some of these things about like what is creative life, and what are we trying to do by writing poems in his case. So by negative, he doesn't mean, you know, like a downer or cynical. He means the absence, so the negative capability is the ability to accept the absence of certainty, right? So, and I can't remember the exact how he phrases it, but to stand on uneven ground or uncertain ground, and to profess, you know, to be able to exist creatively without understanding it, or without expectation, without even results, you know, because sometimes you'll pursue something and it doesn't turn out in any way, but maybe it does years from now, and you've just set the groundwork for something. It's a mystery, right? So it's that ability to live in that mystery.
That's all. Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm gonna look up some Keats.
Negative capabiliity, he called it.
Negative capability, yeah. And I think about that in music a lot too. Like I'm not a musician, but I love music. And I think about it in art, in visual art. Do you think about kind of the negative space at all in like the actual technical side of making? Like sometimes you want to include everything, but then you realize you have to kind of pare it back or take it away, and there's space that's necessary.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I feel that in my guitar playing a lot now, that I mean, yeah, it's sort of what you're not playing often. And if you see if you listen to some jazz musicians, it's very much that. It's what they don't play sometimes. That is, and so that's instructive too, like the negative space thing, as you mentioned, for sure.
And that's great. So I guess I'm kind of curious now to talk, like we're getting it. We got into like some really great conversation that I feel super inspired by. So thanks for going there.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I kind of want to know a little bit about I guess your experience with Fringe North, and also working in Sault Ste. Marie. By the sounds of it, you have a bit of a community. Just looking at your website and seeing your like some co-producers and some musicians. Is it all based out of the Soo?
Yeah. I think all of my recordings have been done in the Soo, and it changes. I'll kind of, sort of like when I feel like I want to record, or it's sort of like feels like it's just time to do that. People kind of show up, and I, we'll work with people for certain projects, and then we kind of all move on to different things. I don't have like a crew that I've been with forever. I'm sort of, I guess, alone in that way, but there's so many just marvelously talented people in the Soo, and like especially I'm just blown away by the musicians who've come out since, let's say, since the pandemic. like after the pandemic, it's completely changed, and like the bands and the songwriters and the like we're talking about jazz, like some of the musicians are just incredible, you know. Yeah, so there's a just this really, and in the visual arts as well, and theatrical arts, it's just a really strong community. I kind of feel like I'm outside of things. I don't know that I don't have a sense of I know there's a community there, but I don't feel that. I don't know. I always feel like no one knows me, and that's part of it. And I just kind of watch what other people are doing, and I'm very much admire what I hear and what I see. Um, but yeah, there is a really good community. I think some of it in the Sioux, at least from, and I'm, different generations, so it's probably, I hope it's different now. The experience I've always had in the Sioux is sort of like silos, like there's um, like individual sort of empires almost of like little scenes everywhere, and they kind of try to get together sometimes, and they often compete in ways that aren't necessarily healthy. Again, I hope I'm speaking of the past, because I don't know like how artists of your generation interact, or the kind of scenes that are being built now, really,
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure about that in the Sioux, just because I just moved to the area. I'm on St. Joseph Island, so
Oh,
but I've like, yeah, working for the Fringe now. It seems there's lots of energy. The team's great. So yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm excited to kind of dip my toes. A bit like you, I tend to feel a little bit on the outside of things for the most part. I think for my whole life, kind of in ways, like I'm never fully in it or like leading, or
yeah.
But I think just needing time to absorb and then sit back and do your thing, kind of thing.
Yeah. I guess that might be part of the whole Fringe concept too, right? Sort of on the edges of things.
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah, it totally is, and it's cool to see, yeah, different performers, different musicians, different folks from different backgrounds, and folks from the north, folks from down south. So, what do you have planned for this performance? It's Fringe North.
Yeah. I've been thinking about it, and I guess at least my concept of what Fringe is, I feel like I should have like some kind of overarching concept of, like a theme or something, but I really don't. I'll probably just, what my plan is, I'm just going to play a bunch of songs, and as well as I can, and just do a performance in that way. Like I don't, I'm not going to approach it with any kind of theatrical sense, or any sort of theme or anything like that concept. So just a bunch of tunes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to hear. I think it'll be great. It'll be, yeah. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
I as well.
I'm just thinking of. I sometimes ask if you have any wisdom to impart on young folks, or any artist. But I feel like you have already. Well, I'll let you answer that question too. But I also have a question of like, do you have anything that you've been really inspired by lately? You could be reading, any sort of art form, any music, anything that you've just been really obsessing over.
Well, oh, yeah, a lot of my time this year has been working with my partner through some health issues, and so I've been very inspired just by generosity of humanity, and just selflessness of people, and so in an artistic way, I think it's just I've kind of lost my train of thought there now. This could be edited out, maybe.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's been a big focus, just sort of personal, some things we're dealing with, and it's all really positive, and it's been very moving. So that kind of emotional work has been my main focus. The Coburn book as well has taught me a lot. Just there was so much doubt around it, and I haven't said this in public very much, but I was told by every Canadian publisher that there was no market or interest in a book about Bruce Coburn, which I found astonishing to think about. And so I was kind of set up thinking, oh, no one's gonna want to read this. And of course, people have wanted to read it, and which I find very moving. And so a lot of my time has been talking about the book, but what it has taught me is that it's really important, I think, to follow one's heart and to follow, if you are driven to do something creative, something that is positive, and you have good intentions behind it, you have to pursue that, and I'm just sort of learning that, I guess to it's kind of fear, right? It's like fear is important because it can direct us and guide us and keep us safe. But when it inhibits us from moving forward, it's not helpful. And so, like, I think if one does pursue the thing that they feel strongly about, it works out. There's a reason for all these things, and there's a reason you paint what you paint, and people write what they write. And even if it seems that no one's listening or no one's paying attention, that might not even matter so much, but it might just be that the thing, it needs to be out there, right? I'm not expressing that very well, I guess.
No, you are for sure. Yeah. I'm picturing it, and it's you're totally making sense, and I think that's some sage advice. I really appreciate your generosity today, chatting. I just want to know I've learned a lot, and I'm inspired, and I'm sure you're a great teacher. So I don't know if you want to hear that, but
no, I feel the same way. I feel very energized by this conversation, and the things you've said have been very wise, and I've learned a lot myself. So,
oh, well, I guess we're all on this journey together.
Indeed.
But yeah, thanks for the insight, and thanks for the time today. So I just want to thank Mark for joining us today. Merci, miigwech, gracias. And it's just a reminder that Fringe North 2024 will be from August 21st to the 25th. Please check our website and all of our social media channels, and you'll see the description below for more information about Fringe North. And also, we'll link your website, Mark, so you'll be able to see some more info, see some info about your book and your albums as well.
Awesome. Thanks,
so
Emelie.
If you want to support the work that we're doing here at Fringe Festival, please consider tipping the Fringe. Your support not only helps us, but also supports emerging artists and Northern arts. Every dollar counts. You can find the link below for that as well. So we'll be back with another episode soon. We can't wait to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Emelie.
For either, I'm the Heather, so the proud mascot of Fringe North 2024. You'll see me swaying in the wind throughout the festival, just like I do in the beautiful shorelines of Manitoulin Island. I'm an artist in my own right, bringing a touch of natural beauty wherever I go. Fringe North is all about celebrating the vibrant arts community in the north. And guess what? 100% of our box office sales goes straight to paying the amazing artists who bring the festival to life. But to keep the magic going, we need your help. If you spot me around the festival, feel free to ask me questions or discover cool facts about Fringe North. And most importantly, tip the Fringe. Your support helps us to continue to bring this incredible festival back year after year. So, want to support Fringe North? Tip the Fringe and let the arts flourish. Remember, Fringe North, expect the unexpected. For more information on how to tip the Fringe, head on over to SueFringe.com.